Right, Liverpool have just lost 1-0 away from home, and there is so much to unpack yet again from another Liverpool performance. I'm kind of sick of unpacking some of the same things, but there's also reams and reams of notes on a screen just behind you, and I kind of want to get to it. But first of all, I think the main thing to say is bottom of the Premier League, Nottingham Forest have just beaten Liverpool 1-0 at home, and there is validation of a lot of what is going on there, because you can see these individual performances throughout the season and the great results they would get, well, they're great. Not only that, but one of Liverpool's ex-players himself has decided to score against them, and you've got to say there's got to be something really satisfying about that for him. He looked like a great player, and obviously he came for a huge transfer fee, and he pounced at just the right moment. I did wonder whether Alisson could have got back up, but clearly not, and Forest played Liverpool so perfectly today. They got them into one-on-one battles, they got them into the positions that Liverpool don't want to be in, and they capitalised in the moments when they really needed to capitalise, when Liverpool hadn't capitalised on their opportunities. So, whilst Forest deserve a lot of credit, you've also got to say I don't particularly feel that Liverpool played to a standard, and it is a very high standard that Liverpool set themselves in order to win the game. And I think that's part of it with Liverpool. Liverpool have set very high standards over the last 5-6 seasons under Jurgen Klopp. 7 years, obviously, but 5-6 seasons once things began to get going. And even when they didn't have players in the side, they didn't have like a full team of what we know as the modern Liverpool, they still had those high standards and there was still a building sense. But that's now almost come full circle in the sense that Liverpool know there are very high standards, and the days when they don't reach those, or the days when things are slightly off, it can seem as if Liverpool either aren't engaged in the game, know that there is a weakness within the side, or that they know they can flick it on and off so easily at times that, well, why would they do that for a full 90? They didn't even necessarily have to do that in the 2 previous games that they won against Rangers and then won against City. But that was my point exactly post-City. You cannot not capitalise on this as a result for Liverpool. You cannot not get on the back of that and go, right, well, you know what, you put in a great performance against the top side and there's marginal performance there against probably the best team in the league, second to Arsenal maybe right now. And they didn't. And it's another one of those Liverpool performances where you're left with multiple notes about multiple people. The midfield shape, the fact that Thiago didn't start because of an illness, but then the fact that alongside that, Henderson and Milner weren't able to start into position. Trent Alexander-Arnold came off the bench. And actually, Joe Gomez has been building a head of steam for quite some time in this Liverpool team now. A couple of games in a row where we go, you know what? I said it on a live stream. I thought I'd seen the last of Joe Gomez in the Liverpool team, purely because that Napoli game was such a confidence destroyer. And so to come back from that in order to build towards being one of Liverpool's better players in recent weeks is frustrating for a Liverpool side. But again, it's that on-off switch that this Liverpool side seem to operate with right now. And you're kind of left dumbfounded as a Liverpool fan. It's very clear, obviously, that Liverpool didn't deserve to win the game and there are issues with the side. But you also look and go, okay, well, we know this is how this is meant to operate at the front. There's meant to be a 4 and a 2 and a 4 at the back. There's meant to be a lot better distribution in terms of where Carvalho and Elliott are going. I think Carvalho is not necessarily playing in his strongest position right now. And then Elliott is playing a little bit deeper, he's a little bit more functional. There's not necessarily the creativity and space in order for him to operate. He's much more trying to feed down that side alongside, say, a Mo Salah or someone like that who can run onto the end of those balls. But that just didn't work against Forest. And Forest played Liverpool perfectly with a lot of those details. Firmino then starting his 4th game in however many days. And you did worry at the start of the game that with this personnel, Liverpool were going to struggle against Forest. That's not to say that these personnel are not good. And I'm sort of bored this season of having this Liverpool debate of, is this player good enough anymore? Is this player not good enough anymore? And this was almost the perfect game to evaluate that, right? You had Curtis Jones playing, you had Harvey Elliott playing, you had Carvalho playing, Henderson didn't play but came on as a sub, Milner played at right back. Liverpool there was a long injury list up front, and that's not to make an excuse, but it is part of what I want to get into in a minute. And then they had a lot of what you would call fringe players who had to put in significant performances for Liverpool. And this is what I mean by transition. If you're trying to transition away from that, and there are players within this team who aren't getting many minutes, who are coming back from injuries, who clearly aren't engaged with the project in the same way, who have probably thought about leaving the club in recent years and were very engaged during those title-winning seasons, when there is then not that same level of engagement from an Oxlade-Chamberlain or a Curtis Jones or someone like that, you know it's going to be impacting the morale of the team, but also the shape of the side. And I actually quite liked someone like Curtis Jones dropping a little deeper. I didn't mind the fact that, Oxlade-Chamberlain came on and pushed Mo Salah into the middle. Those things should work. These players don't go from being good players, I'm not going to say great players, good players, to being awful players overnight. But when you're not playing in those positions regularly, when you know that you're not holding down a space, and when you know that even if you do perform well, you're still not going to hold down a space, I'm not quite sure how Liverpool see this knitting together as a system right now. And I don't mean as a starting 11. I mean as a system of how to maintain a squad and a team within a season. It's clear that Klopp has his favourites, and that's not a bad thing necessarily. You always want to have players you think are strong and less strong, so you know what the diversity of your team is. But you also want to have a second option or a third option or someone in behind that Liverpool have seemed to have in previous years. Shaqiri or Minamino or Origi or someone else to come on and tie up that opposition defence. Liverpool don't necessarily have that right now. Part of that is down to injury. Jota's out for however long. I mean, Jurgen Klopp made that same comment of, I don't know how long he could be out for. It's just how long's a piece of string kind of thing. And he said that with Virgil. I think he said the same before with another player as well. I don't remember who. But it leads to a situation where Liverpool are looking at the amount of injuries they've sustained. And you've got to say, all this talk about Liverpool interviewing for a doctor right now, getting rid of a lot of their medical staff and also allowing Michael Edwards all to move on at the same time, means there's a lot of disruption and upheaval behind the scenes at Liverpool. And you've got to question how much of that is impacting the team this season. If they aren't as confident in the way they're performing, their fitness, all these kind of things. You've seen that people have criticised Virgil van Dijk's physicality, how quickly he got up to fitness. The same maybe for Mo Salah, the same for a couple of other people who seemed slightly off it at the beginning of the season. I will drop this in here. I get to the point where I feel like Liverpool are being evaluated on XG rather than G. And I get it. I understand the importance of things like that. I also understand that those things can be quite misleading with certain sides because their build-up play isn't about shots or isn't about, getting players in certain positions like that anymore. And Liverpool definitely seem like one of those teams. Liverpool didn't put their chances away and should have put their chances away multiple times in the game. And I think that evaluating XG purely is probably a fruitless exercise for Liverpool right now, or an exercise which doesn't indicate whether they deserve to win the game or not. It may show some other things that Liverpool aren't creating good enough chances from certain positions, but cumulative XG for me isn't what I'm looking for in this game. I don't think that's particularly helpful. I do think that there is something to be said for not just going out there and going, well, they didn't create enough chances, did they? It's a weird evaluation, and we're going to hear that a lot over the next few days. So good luck with that on social. Here's a real hot take if you want it. Liverpool are trying to fit a lot of pieces in right now, including Nunez, including possibly a different shape in midfield, and they're not quite making it click because the system is not benefiting from the individuals right now. If you want to get one thing right, then it has to be the system over the individuals, and the other things will follow. The problem being that obviously when the individuals then play well, Nunez is then injured, Liverpool should still be able to beat Forest without that. And on top of that, with trying to fit those individuals in, there are big changes that then mean that there are huge holes when Liverpool then miss those players. Over-reliance on one individual within a side cannot be the case for Liverpool, especially if they want to be competing for things. So having Nunez out, having Thiago out in the midfield, or not having Matip or someone like that at the back, or Konate, is not an excuse. These players have backups and they have other players who should be playing well, and I get it. There is an explanation for that in that, Firmino is played so many games in a couple of days, hasn't done that in previous seasons or been doing that recently. The midfield, there are rusty players in there. It's all explicable, and that's the frustration. You could see Jurgen Klopp's frustration post-game. That's the frustrating element here. You could see what Klopp wanted to say, but couldn't say about the fitness and the durability of Liverpool at the moment, and how that is impacting the whole makeup of the team. It's a strange thing to say, but Liverpool kind of missed a Nunez today. They missed someone who was a bit more chaotic. There was a lot of very sterile build-up play. There weren't very many runs in there, and I get it. He's not the only player in the side that can do that, but I was confused as to why Liverpool players weren't doing that. So they missed Nunez, which feels strange to say so early on into his Liverpool career, but also when he's such a up and down kind of player to watch in terms of your emotions at times. Now, again, I'm not going to go back and say that means these players are just falling off a cliff and they are terrible. I think they have a lot of good attributes. And saying this guy's not good enough for Liverpool anymore, this guy's not good enough, It's not about putting quantity and quality next to each other, which I have done. I've been burned by that after seeing good performances from all those players. It's about the balance of that quantity and quality. There is quantity of good players at Liverpool, but in order to get the performances they need, there have to be a few more great performances of great players squeezing the maximum out of what's going on there. There then has to be criticism of a lot of the performances that Liverpool put in today. But at the same time, if you're saying that Joe Gomez is the reason that Liverpool lost this game, you're not watching Liverpool. You're not watching and understanding and synthesizing what Liverpool are trying to achieve right now. If you think that Virgil van Dijk had a bad performance today, you're delusional. And if you think that saying that Andy Robertson is still bedding back in, or that James Milner is particularly weak at right back because he's not a right back, is an evaluation of a side, again, you're not watching where Liverpool are weak. It's through the midfield and the lack of structure and shape within this Liverpool side right now. The lack of build-up structure and shape, meaning that Firmino has to drop deep, maybe look a little more like he's just freestyling something. Mo Salah has to drop deep or go wide or go into multiple different positions. And it doesn't seem as organised. It doesn't seem as briefed and orchestrated as you saw in previous seasons, where Liverpool clearly had something smart. They clearly had something that was you could repeat and was repetitive and meant that the opposition would get ground down, but also that they repeat, and then end that cycle and they go and score a goal by Mane triggering a certain kind of run or Salah coming in off the right. And today I saw that very early on. You could see that Liverpool weren't quite sure what they were doing earlier. They were given a lot of possession, but they were being way too cute with things. Curtis Jones was being way too cute. I think there were times where I saw Andy Robertson trying to be way too cute. And I think Carvalho was trying to get into kind of cute positions, but it was very clear that he was getting picked up by a Nottingham Forest player, so could very rarely kind of find that space and facilitate in the way that he wanted to. Again, like, I'm sure there will be damning evaluations of Liverpool online. There'll be people who will be, absolutely thrilled that Liverpool have not put in a good performance. But I'm also kind of bored of the cliche of those people now who are basically just trying to pick holes in something that they frankly don't watch every week and frankly don't actually understand. I think Liverpool the explanation, not the excuse for this, would be that Liverpool are transitioning as a side right now. I'd imagine there are a few people who, it's nothing to do with their engagement or the professionalism or any of that kind of stuff, but Jurgen Klopp has worn them to a point now where there is no longer the resource within this squad to compete at the very top level. You would have thought that they would have come together and there was a lot of togetherness, should we say, at the start of the season within the squad. There were a lot of people who knew each other very well, a lot of people who felt very comfortable in the team, felt like they were coming back. And that didn't quite click. And that lack of a click has actually left, like when you try and fit two pieces together, if it doesn't click, it either just stays or those two things can break apart. And there's a lot of a disjointed feel around Liverpool right now. Alisson, by the way, just deserves an honourable mention for being Alisson. He's an intelligent goalkeeper, his passing is fantastic, he's always consistent, he makes saves when Liverpool need him to, and as much as I said he didn't get up, and there is frustration around that, he was great for Liverpool again, and he's going to get bored of just being exposed like this by Liverpool's backline and system. They probably all know they need to get through this, and they will be frustrated by this result. In many ways, that's probably a good thing, that internally the Liverpool fan base are frustrated by this result. But Alisson in particular will be frustrated because, again, another week where he could have had another clean sheet and didn't end up with one because he was exposed by the deficiencies of Liverpool's defending. There are other frustrations as well because, when you look at the way that Liverpool are setting up right now, it's very clear they've got this new idea and they feel quite confident in it until they get put on the back foot. And before there was a kind of grit your teeth and move forward mentality. Now it seems to be much more like, we've sort of been found out in the position that we're in and it's not particularly positive feeling for Liverpool right now. So I think there's a balance there to strike. And saying Mo Salah is not performing, frankly, Jermaine Genius's evaluation of him today was just abysmal. I didn't think, it's either that he hasn't watched him before or he doesn't know how to evaluate players live alongside, say, a commentator. There were points where he was just losing Liverpool players' names in the commentary, but then he also said that Salah looked disinterested. It's just not an evaluation of what Mo Salah is right now. Do you know what I mean? It's very clear that Mo Salah is engaged and interested in what is going on. And there is a frustration around the fact that I think there's going to be a lot of people who build off narrative rather than evaluation with this. Part of me enjoys that because part of me, I'm obviously not the type of person to keep receipts on this sort of thing. online, but I also think there's a lot of people who are going to be making themselves look quite foolish about Liverpool right now. There is a narrative around them, there is a weakness, and I agree, that's correct, there is a weakness to this side. But what the solutions are, and what a lot of people seem to be suggesting, is a burn it all down and move on kind of mentality. And I think that misses the nuance of what is going on with Liverpool right now. It misses the nuance of the confidence issues that some players are suffering, the decline that some other players are suffering, and also just the complete lack of match sharpness for so many players within this side. It's not excusable. Liverpool haven't managed their squad well. It's not something that Liverpool should be going through, because they should be better than this. But at the same time, I understand that. And it doesn't mean that people aren't trying their hardest, doesn't mean that people aren't engaged with the project, doesn't mean that there is a problem at Liverpool which is unsolvable. It just means that they're in this period where those things are not aligned and they need to realign them. And strangely, Liverpool have shown their capability, which is the most frustrating factor for Liverpool right now. They've shown they're capable of whatever it is that you want to achieve in the Premier League. You can beat City, you can beat other sides, Liverpool went within a handball of drawing 3-3 with Arsenal, putting them to the sword. I know that the narrative was different around that, but Liverpool weren't all that bad. In fact, they were better than not all that bad in that game. They were engaging with Arsenal. So you got to say, you will join the dots backwards in that Steve Jobs style way, right? And you'll find moments where we will understand what the Forest game meant, or what the Fulham game meant, or all these kind of things later on in the season, when you see certain players come to fruition, or you see other players dropping out of the team because they maybe don't quite suit the style or don't quite suit what Liverpool are trying to achieve. But right now, and Liverpool, before, it was quite easy in a way to evaluate them. You could see there was a repetitive system that they were trying to enact. That's not there right now. So there is a problem with the coaching. There is a problem with what's going on off the field. It's not me saying get rid of all the coaches. It's me saying there is an issue with the system and the way that Liverpool are currently enacting it. But at the same time, there is faith in Klopp. There is faith in a lot of players within this side. And the fact that Virgil van Dijk put the ball across the goal twice today, had a header that was really well saved by Dean Henderson, and that Liverpool have this repeatable system from set pieces at least, shows there is something within this team. Let me know what you think in the comments below. I'll be interested to hear what you have to say. I'll speak to you later. Bye.